All right. Well, good evening, all. Welcome to the meeting of the Growth Planning Committee for May 4th, 2021. I am Dan Saunders, and I will have the rest of the board members introduce themselves. Janet?
Janet Powell. Maybe.
Jim?
James Herman.
All right. Thanks, Jim. Paul?
Paul Hogan is here. Even though my screen says Jerry Fitzgerald, my wife's name.
Yeah, okay.
To confuse you with the other Fitzgerald.
I thought Jim was using something else besides. All right, very good. So, and Mr. Warner Gillian will join us hopefully in a bit. And our not really our guest, but our leaders on this project for redoing our comprehensive plan. Tom and Liz, do you want to introduce yourselves, please?
Tom Morgan.
All right.
Liz Durfee.
All right. Thank you, Liz. So first thing on our agenda is the summer public outreach. So who's taking that for us here? Taking the lead on that, Liz or Tom?
I'll kick us off, and we're going to tag team a little bit. So I will share my screen first, if that's all right. So let's see here. Just make this full screen here. Do you see the full screen mode, or do you see the presenter mode?
It's, yeah.
Boy. All right, let me unplug mine. 1 second. Sometimes when I have a separate monitor hooked up, it doesn't like to show the right one. So I'm just going to unplug my camera. Second. Sorry, 1 moment. Oh, yeah. All right, I'll try that. I know I've done it before, but well, I don't see that. Oh, there it is. Okay. I don't know. Let me just do the easy way. Let's see if this works. Sometimes it works fine, and sometimes it doesn't seem to work.
Oh, there you go.
Okay. How's that looking? Better?
Yep, looks good.
All right, thanks everyone. So thanks for having us back again. Tonight we're going to go over some of the discussion that Tom and I have had as a sort of follow-up from our last meeting where we talked about some of the upcoming outreach events and items. And we'll also go over some preliminary results from mini survey 3 and some questions for mini survey 4.
Okay.
Oops. Okay. So far we've had 76 responses to survey 3. It was posted fairly recently, I believe, on the town's website. So we hope that more results will be coming in soon. And I will show briefly the responses to date. Again, sorry, the formatting's a little bit wonky when you export it from SurveyMonkey, but we found that most people that did respond to this third survey had also responded to the first two surveys, and those that hadn't said that they planned to, so that's great. We asked a question, this was sort of a follow-up to our discussion on hazards, and we asked a question on evacuation. If you need to evacuate due to a storm, extended power outage, or other reason, where would you go? And most people said a hotel, motel inn, or short-term rental. These are the results in the table format. A handful of people, about 10 people said that they didn't know where they would stay. And there was a few others, and those responses were sort of a combination of all of the presented answer choices. The next question was about difficulty evacuating due to a lack of transportation. And there were sort of interesting results because we asked if the individual responding to the survey would have difficulty, and then we had a follow-up question asking if the respondent knew someone else who might have difficulty. And most of the people that responded said no. But a few more said that they knew someone that may have difficulty evacuating due to a lack of transportation.
Interesting.
We asked if flooding due to storm events and or high tides had impacted the survey respondent in any of the following ways. And this was our fault. We didn't put in none of the above. And so I think a number of people skipped this one because there wasn't that option. But the most common response here, over 70% of the folks that did respond said that they had to take an alternative route due to roadway flooding. So the table format responses are here. We asked whether respondents' properties were located within the FEMA 100-year floodplain, and pointed folks towards the flood maps so that they could try to check to see if they didn't know. And about 25% of the respondents said that they were in the floodplain. Close to 60 said that they weren't. And then about 15% said that they didn't know if they were in or out of the floodplain. So those folks likely aren't in the floodplain, the current regulatory floodplain, or they perhaps don't have a mortgage, so they're not required to have flood insurance, and so they may not know. We asked a question about well water and salinity. We're having Dr. Jay Knott come and talk about groundwater rise related to sea level rise. So this was kind of a preliminary question to get folks thinking about that topic. And most of the respondents said that they didn't have a well, or that their well water hadn't had high salinity. A few people said no, and 3 people said yes. And question 8 was, how familiar are you with sea level rise projections that have been issued by the Maine Climate Council? We pointed folks towards that document. And there was sort of a mixture of responses here, with the greatest percentage of folks being somewhat familiar, followed by not familiar at all and very familiar. And that was the end of the survey 3. It's still posted for folks who haven't had a chance to take it, and all of the surveys are still up live. And so we'll keep those up for a while and check back frequently to see if we have more responses. Does anyone have any questions or want to scroll back to any of those items? No? Okay. So moving on to the next thing that we wanted to talk about related to outreach was our groundwater rising presentation by Dr. Jay Knott on June 1st at the regularly scheduled Growth Planning Committee meeting. And Tom and I had talked about following sort of a similar path that we did for the last event, the Climate 101 and the Comp Plan, in terms of advertising. I believe we had the event posted on the town website. It was emailed out to town listservs. It was posted on our project website. We had a couple Instagram social media posts, and we had a short announcement that went to the Coast Star, and then it was also on the public access channel, which I believe is 2 and or 16. So we wanted to see if that sounded good to you, if you had any other ideas about advertising for that upcoming event.
Seems like you've covered all the bases. Any ideas, Paul or Janet or Jim, of additional places we could advertise?
I would just say in the Kennebunk Post.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't think of any others without spending money for advertising. I think just really talking it up, word of mouth, getting people to talk about it. If you're in a group or you're at the library or you're at a party, I doubt if you're at a party. Really miss those parties.
Yeah, as long as you're outside.
I think you have a nice range of, website, you're sending it to various groups, and you do have it on the public channel. And it sounds pretty comprehensive to me.
Okay, great.
Hey, what about I don't know if it was mentioned, the outside, the traffic signal thing outside? I don't know if that's for use or just posting right outside of the fire department.
Oh, you mean that sort of digital sign?
Yeah, like right outside.
Whatever.
Yeah, right outside of the, yeah.
Good idea. I didn't think of that. Is that a problem for the town to set up?
Just have to ask, and if it's available, they'll give it.
Yeah.
Who would we coordinate on that?
Werner.
Yeah, just
Okay.
given enough notice, we would talk to, we'd talk to the highway department and the police department about what we want to, what type of message we would want to have on there. I'm sure there's probably a character limit, in terms of what can get put on there, but I can get the details on that.
Yeah, we probably have to point folks to like the website to find a link or the agenda.
Yeah. Speaking of the highway department, Werner, the Dr. Knott's presentation is going to cover several different ways groundwater rise is going to impact the town, but probably what's going to get the most attention is impact on the roads, because that's going to be fairly surprising, and I would think Public Works would be particularly interested in hearing what she has to say.
Yep.
Good thought. If we had a couple of signs, I know there's always a long line now in the post office because of social distancing, and there is a bulletin board there.
Right.
You're sort of stuck waiting. So I always look at the board when I'm there. So maybe one,
That's a great idea.
if you do something, I'm happy to go post them around. I guess just the library and the post office and Werner. Do you have I'm sure you have a decent printer too.
Yeah.
I just have a black and white. I don't have anything decent.
Yep. Yeah. No, if we get whatever we come up with in terms of an announcement sheet, we can print copies, on the town printer for sure.
So that's a great segue to the next thing I was going to just pull up quickly. We put together a couple flyers. We had a few different formats for our last event just to make sure something fit well on the TV screen, I think. But we have, I think, pull up a flyer here. Let me know if you can't see it. And we'll email these out to you so that you can take a closer look at them and let us know if you have comments or questions. But this just has a basic information on what the presentation will be about, Jane's, a brief bio for Jane, and then we'll add the Zoom link on the bottom. And then we had another sort of smaller version that could be shown on the public access screen. So if it's all right with everyone, we could send those out after the meeting so folks have a chance to just take a closer look, and you can let us know if you have comments.
Yep. Sounds good.
Okay. And then I also threw together just a quick Word document to send to the Coast Star, and we could use that for the Kennebunk Post too. So I'm going to go back to this. See if I get the right one. Okay, so we did have a couple questions on logistics for the event. In the event that, we get quite a bit of attendance, we want to make sure that, well, first, we would like to be able to give Jane the ability to share her screen, which I think should be relatively easy. But we do want to give folks the opportunity to ask questions and answers, and we haven't really had public attendance at any of these meetings that I'm aware of, or at least I haven't seen anyone's cameras. So we wanted to check in to see how that would work, if we would be able to allow participants to, either unmute themselves and show their videos and ask a question and answer, or how the town typically handles that during other public meetings.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's, what I've seen, there's a couple different formats that, in terms of how the meeting could be set up. I've been on a fair number of like continuing ed seminars, where you have, where it's all a webinar format.
Yeah.
And, there's, the ability to do some, Q&A within, a type of, webinar format. I mean, the meeting setup that we have, that we've been running here is similar in that sense. I think it is, it could be a little bit clunky in terms of bringing people in, and doing the Q&A that way. Because I think in some of the other webinars, it's questions that get typed and they either get answered, kind of in and during the presentation, or get addressed afterwards. But, I'm sure everybody here has done their fair share of kind of the mixed bag of, of Zoom style meetings. And so I'd be interested to hear feedback on, what the committee's experience has been with those. Because I think we could probably set it up, either way. But
I mean, I know what works. I'll jump in here. What works well from the ones I've been on, and they've all, I'll say, are Microsoft Teams related, and there's the ability to type in a question, from anyone that's a participant. And then if we have big meetings where there's 100 people or so on board, one person sort of gets assigned just to read the question. Mm-hmm. And it kind of keeps it moving along, and people don't step on each other when they're trying to ask a question. I was just looking at the Zoom screen I have available to me here, and I don't see the ability to type a question, but don't know if that's something that could be added.
You can type into the chat function. So you can just type your questions into the chat, and you have it addressed to everybody or just to the moderator. And, you can also do a raise the hand, and somebody is watching that screen and then says, okay, Sue, you can talk, you can speak now. So, you either go with the chat questions and somebody can moderate it. I'm just looking for where my chat is on this one.
I don't know if we have the chat, actually.
Yeah. I can find it.
Maybe that's a town setting.
Yeah, it's all how the meeting is initially set up to begin with.
Yeah.
So we haven't been doing, the committee meetings haven't been set up with that type of a type in, chat function. Just whenever there's public participation, folks have been brought into the meeting as a panelist. They're given opportunity to speak, and then they get put back into the audience, which, I think, it adds, I suspect, I don't want to speak for the video guys if they want to, pop in here and share their feedback, but I think it's it can be pretty labor intensive if you have a fair amount of people to manage that piece of it. And I think just the ones where you have a larger group of participants, using the chat function, where people can type questions in and those get answered, seems to work really well. But
So it sounds like we need a volunteer to be a moderator to coordinate the questions that come in. Huh?
Well, how long is just curious? How long is the presentation? Does the person feel that they'll have the opportunity to speak and then they want to answer the question, or is this like a back and forth situation?
I believe that the presentation will be about 30 minutes, and then there'll be an opportunity for back and forth.
Yeah,
she should go through it and not be broken up by, technology issues, etc.
Right. Yeah. That's one of the advantages of typing is, if something comes up, someone can just type in the question they have right then, and then you can go back to it later.
Yeah. So if, just out of curiosity, the way the meeting tonight is set up, if there was a member of the public attending, we wouldn't see their video.
Not as an attendee to the meeting.
Okay.
We wouldn't see them in our screen of video participants.
Okay.
But how we've handled, for instance, the planning board meetings, has been that when there's time for public comment as an attendee, they'll raise their hand, and then they get promoted into the panelist category. Where they're then able to speak. If they're an applicant, then they're also able to share video and they can share screen and those types of things. It's a process that was put together really to, this was, back in the beginning stages when Zoom bombing was a thing. It was kind of I guess you could call it a security function, to do it that way. And I think that's probably one of the things we just have to keep in mind is that, doing it in, kind of that continuing education webinar format, keeps that level of, call it internet protection by, allowing people to do a chat function, but not doing any type of shared screen.
Yeah.
We could do it with a chat so that it would flow smoothly and quicker with the questions than having to tell the people you're on mute, 9 times. And then depending upon how the time went, we could open it for questions by having people raise their hands and then they get promoted, right?
Yeah, I think we could do it that way. Yep.
So who's the gatekeeper on these two options? Dave, it sounds like you just volunteered.
Yeah. Dave is also known as, the Wizard of Oz, or the man.
The man behind the curtain.
All right. I was hoping somebody would answer that question before June 1st, so I got the answer.
So if
Dave,
the chat, sorry.
Yeah, I was just it's probably what you were going to ask too. If the chat function is there, is Dave the one who reads the questions in the order they're done, or can someone else do that so we don't put that on Dave?
Yeah, I think someone else should, and either Tom or I can, or if if a growth planning committee member wants to, then that would, that's certainly, you're welcome to do that also. If one of you prefers to sort of moderate the chat, and otherwise, one of us can certainly do that.
Dave, can somebody do that other than you?
Okay, do I need I could do that. Should I have that on a second screen, or is it available to see on one screen, like on the Teams meeting, the chat's on sidebar? Is it a sidebar?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I can do
And
that.
sometimes you get 5 of the same questions, so the moderator needs to, consolidate and order it and whatever.
Right.
The other thing that I did in another larger meeting that I was part of recently, we had the option for folks to either send an email to someone in case they're watching from home
TV.
and they don't have the ability to chat or even call in with a question. So, we can certainly provide our information. Or, Werner, if you want to be the primary contact or another growth planning committee member, then we could have, someone else's contact information in the event that someone does want to reach out during the meeting who's not on Zoom.
Yeah, no, I think that works.
Great.
I have a question for Dave. Dave? Yeah, last time we had one of these events, it was recorded, and it ended up we had a link to YouTube, as I recall. I can't remember if we had to make any arrangements in advance for that to happen, but okay, then we're good there. Yeah. Okay.
Great, thanks.
Right. Yep.
I think those were our main questions. Does anyone else have any sort of logistics questions? I just wanted to make sure that we could get a couple of those out of the way before we move along too much.
Yeah, so at the start of that meeting, I would kick off the meeting as normal, do our introduction to member and guests, but do I turn it over to you or Tom to sort of go through the introduction? You guys are...
Yeah, that would be a good idea.
Yeah, okay.
Because we both know Jane. And, good choice for intros.
Yeah, okay. I'll do that. So let me know who to throw it to, and I'll do that as part of it.
And then I think, Dan, it makes sense for you to moderate, but let them receive the emails, because that's like 3 screens that you got to have going. Yeah. Which is tough.
Yep. Yeah, the email should go to Tom or Liz, or collaborative email that you may have.
Yeah, or I can take them as well. One of us can certainly take those and moderate those out.
My thought is that there may be people sending emails later too. And someone watches it 2 weeks later, they may have a question. And it might be good to still capture that somehow.
Yep.
Yeah, so it should go to the one that's on the main one that Liz and Tom got.
Yeah.
That's on the page. It's on the website.
All right. Next up, sort of brief overview of our progress related to the summer outreach event. Thank you to Werner and Paul for helping us get in touch with the Tom Bradbury of the Kennebunkport Conservation Trust, and then also No Nantum. We have sort of heard some tentative positive feedback from both. I think the next step with regards to reaching out to the resort is to present a couple dates and options, and then we can also follow back up with Tom about some of the potential dates and sort of tentatively move forward with an outdoor event, and then have a backup plan in the event that we are either unable to find a tent or things change with the COVID state orders or comfort level. I did look up what the current state orders are, and after May 24th, for outdoor gatherings, 100% of permitted occupancy is allowed. So, so if we have a tent that can fit 50 people, then we can fit 50 people as long as folks are comfortable with that. And we can have that discussion also. I looked at the community event page of your calendar. Not 100% sure if there's either nothing on the calendar or this calendar may not include any events. But it does look like there aren't any major community events on any July weekends, at least town events. But Tom and I thought it might be helpful to at least check off a couple dates that we know won't work. And then also we have a couple poll questions that we'd like to send out in a mini survey to see if either a weekday or a weekend is better for the folks who do respond to those surveys.
Yeah, that was one of the things that I wanted to bring up just in discussion was that, I think it's, I think it's great that we have a potential couple of options. I also wanted to throw out that, just practically speaking, there's a tent that's set up over at Consolidated, as part of their kind of outdoor classroom. It's not very big, but they do have a tent that's that's set up there, and then we have the benefit also then of restrooms over at the town's rec center. So, but I do think that it's important once we get some tentative dates, is thinking about what has the potential for the best public participation. So I want to be sensitive to that. And so while it's great that the No Nanum was offering up, I also want to make sure that that we're not scheduling this at a time in which we're not going to get good public participation. So we want to make sure that we're either in that that evening time frame, whenever folks are able to come from work, there's something, something of that nature, or a weekend. So, but I think generally the evenings probably tend to be better. I know folks tend, more than likely are, spending weekends elsewhere, but certainly willing to hear feedback from folks.
Werner, what is the capacity of the tent? Do you know?
The which tent? The one at the
Consolidated, yeah.
At Consolidated. I don't know. I'd be guessing as to the size of it. I'm going to say that tent is maybe 400 square feet. Something like that.
It's like a couple of picnic tables underneath, like 4 picnic tables or something like that, if I remember.
Yeah, maybe a little bigger than that, but not a whole lot more than that. I'm picturing it in the context of parking spaces. So it's maybe the size of 2 to 3 parking spaces. So.
Are they planning to leave that up the whole summer?
It's been up. It's been up this long, so they
use it for summer camp.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, and they've been doing some outdoor class work there. So again, I just throw that out as another potential location. I know just having spoken with different tent companies right now, trying to get a hold of a tent is virtually an impossibility, as a lot of those were pretty quickly spoken for in the beginning of the season already. Hence why I just thought of the known Annam, because I know they got on board pretty quick with, getting that set up for the summer. So.
Werner, who's
She had did they have limitations at Northampton?
I just,
On
in terms of capacity,
the timing, like maybe weekends aren't so good for them. A weekday would be better.
well, and that's how I framed, my initial ask to Tina was in that context that, if they had time frames, understanding that, usually the weekends are going to be weddings, I would assume.
Yeah, sure.
I would expect that more than likely there's not an evening wedding during the week, but I don't know that, and so I think it would be helpful for us to get some tentative dates, figured out, to propose.
Yeah. And lighting, I would assume they would have lighting under their tents, but I'm not sure about the rec.
Right. Yeah, there's no lighting over at, there's no lighting over at, at the consolidated one, so that is another really a logistical issue.
And the trust changes every week. Each wedding brings their own tent in and takes it out, basically.
So we do have a couple poll questions that we wanted to put out in the mini survey that ask about, are you more likely to attend a weekend or a weekday, that sort of thing. But it might be helpful if we could at least internally select a couple different options that may work. Obviously not the 4th of July weekend. We know first and third Tuesdays work well for this group.
Yeah.
And are there any other conflicts that folks are aware of? Any strong preferences among committee members for a weekend or a weekday?
I'm personally fine with either, because I would generally be here. I might be doing actually some business travel in July, and I don't have any firm dates on that at the moment. So that could impact the daytime.
Okay.
The week of the 12th or the 19th is what's being discussed. But I don't have anything firm.
Yeah. As far as days tend to be concerned, I think, obviously we've got the 6th and the 20th, as being our regularly scheduled times. We would want to try, I would want to avoid planning board, which is going to be on Wednesdays of those same weeks. So that would be the 7th and the 21st we would want to avoid.
Yeah.
And the Board of Selectmen's, which are Thursdays, same weeks?
Correct. I believe those are offset.
Yeah, but they're the 2nd and 4th, right? Which would actually be that same week, because the 1st is a Thursday.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, so they would be the 8th and the 22nd.
Yeah.
So likely those would also be days to avoid.
Okay.
So maybe our days, 6th or the 20th. Because you guys are available.
Mm-hmm.
We're available.
We are.
Yep.
So that
Looks
certainly
like-
should be.
Yeah, and the last week of July would also be, available. I don't think we would have any conflicts there.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, that's a pretty good start, I think. So we could at least throw out a handful of those dates to the folks that have tents. And who would we get in touch with? Do you have a contact over at the Consolidated School, Warner, that you could point us towards?
Yes, I can get you the facilities.
Okay, just so we can.
The facilities manager.
Sounds like that might be a little bit small, but it's probably worth just checking out, just in case.
And who should get back to an anthem? Werner, will that be you or us?
I can start the conversation and include you all in on it with with Tina and their event staff that they have there.
Okay.
Just a thought, if we're gonna, are we gonna send out a survey with this to find out when people are gonna be interested?
Yeah, we were thinking of doing that.
Do we have the capacity if we're trying to figure out volume of people? Is it worth mentioning? If you're interested, do you want to RSVP through this outlet? We can kind of start gauging a number of people.
Well, we can do that, but we would have to have a date, I think, selected.
Yeah.
Right. No. And I that makes sense. But if I'm interested in attending, and I know it's in July, and it just food for thought. It might give you some kind of a general idea of how many people you would be looking at, even if they don't know, if they're given the option of July 2, 3, and 4 certain dates. They may be willing to say, I'm not necessarily concrete RSV, but I'm interested in going. You know what I mean? It kind of gives you, are we talking 5 people, or are we talking 100 people said, they're probably going to attend? At least you can set Warner in the right direction to figure out which place is really going to be suitable.
Yeah.
Just a thought.
My initial thought on this is that it makes sense for us to check with the venues first to make sure we've got some availability on those dates. Make sure that the committee that everybody here is on board with those potential dates, which sounds like July 6th, the 20th, and then any day the 26th through the 30th.
Yeah.
So. Just to make it clear, are we including the weekend in that week of the last week of July? So am I asking the 25th through the 31st, or are we trying to keep this to an evening during the week?
I think it's not a bad
Saturday
idea
mornings.
to have one.
Yeah.
I have no preference, Werner, but I would be surprised if the Mandan had a vacancy on the weekend. That's when they're probably doing the weddings and things.
Yeah,
Right.
I would agree with that, but I just want to make sure that I'm clear when I do my ask.
Yeah. I mean, I'd prefer to do it during the week because, having a family, it's, we want to, it's going to be, we're going to go do something, and even if it could be going out during the evening. So.
Okay. Yeah. So then I'll limit my ask then to the 6th, 20th, and the 26th through the 30th.
Okay. Great. Thanks.
I just had one
I'm gonna have
clarification. Go ahead. Yeah, just one question. This tent at the Nonantum, is that one tent that's there for the season, or is this a series of tents that come and go?
Yeah, I will double check with them in terms of seeing what they have. But last time I spoke with them, their intent was they were setting up kind of a central location. They had numerous kind of small dining tents, last year. But the last I checked with them, that some things were still a little bit fluid, but I'll get some details on that if those dates work.
But Werner, your initial feedback from Amanda was fairly positive, I take it?
Yes, yeah, it was.
Good.
Yeah, they've always been very helpful in supporting our group and others in the town.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. I'm going to stop sharing, and then Tom's going to go through some past public input as a refresher, and then we'll go through the potential survey questions at the end.
Okay.
So, Tom, I'm handing it over.
Okay. Can everybody see my slides up here?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. I've been spending some time looking at not only the recent mini surveys that Liz and I were putting out, but I've always been had my eye on this much larger survey that the Growth Planning Committee did back in 2018. And of course, there was a lot of good information gathered in that effort, and I've always been kind of reminding myself, we can't lose that. We can't lose that. We got to make sure we bring all of that into the comp plan. So it was 37 questions. It was a very, very good response. And I've been kind of playing around with the data, trying to make it a little more useful in terms of the responses, and it'll make it easier for the committee members and the public to kind of hone in on the main points, because there was just so much information collected, you can get kind of lost in the weeds. But I was also wondering, this is a question for all of you, how many of you were involved in that 2019 survey? Were you, because Liz and I, our history only goes back to mid-2019. We don't know much of what happened with growth planning before then.
Yeah, I think.
Everybody here, I think.
Yeah, it was Jordan.
Sorry. I think, wasn't Abby involved in the questions from the survey, Warner?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, I think, Abby Sherwin of Southern Maine Planning and Development, was part of helping us with the survey out.
Yes, and Abby put together a nice summary, but even she had to she had the same problem I did. There was just so much data that she had to kind of distill it one way or another to make it more user-friendly. What I've been doing lately is breaking it down into themes. So for example, the slide we're looking at now are all the questions that were asked pertaining to housing. So that you guys can focus on one topic at a time when you're trying to get a sense of where the community is. And the second column over, the ones with the red and the green, that was an effort to just try to quickly summarize those responses that were significant in terms of large numbers of people going one way or another. So, for example, and this is arbitrary. You could change the numbers, whatever you guys find useful. But just for tonight, I highlighted with red those responses in which you got 75% or more of the respondents agreeing to whatever the issue was. Green was they responded favorably, but not as overwhelmingly as red. Green was somewhere between 50 and 74% responded that we agree with that. And if it was under 50%, I did not assign a color to it. So, but you can see at a glance at this slide, we had 2, 4, 6, 8 questions on housing. 3 of them resonated, and those are the ones you see in red. The 3 are continue to limit the number of dwellings, impact fees, and user fees. Those are the items that got a very positive response from the townspeople. And then the questions on affordable housing, senior housing, and a broad mix of housing types, they got a pretty positive response too, but not as much as the first 3. And then there were a couple that just kind of fell off the radar screen. There was less than 50% thought they were important. One was to require developers to construct affordable housing. The other was the town should get more involved in regulating short-term rentals. So I did this with half a dozen different topics. This is the housing, how they came out. And you can see over in the right column, all these questions are from the 2018 survey. The other thing I'm trying to do here, and we'll see that in a moment, is integrate the 2018 with the more recent mini surveys that Liz and I have been doing, so that we're going to have all the survey respondents in one place. And the other thing that Liz and I have been very careful about doing is we don't want to ask the same questions that have already been asked, because that's not going to play well out in the audience. So that's where we're going with all that. So we had five questions on transportation. Two of them were from 3 years ago. One was from January, and two were from March. And as you can see, the development of bicycle pedestrian paths it was an item that got a lot of support, and the regional transportation alternatives also got some good response. Now, some questions did not lend themselves to, it was just the way they were structured. They didn't lend themselves to, I agree or I don't agree. We post questions like, okay, tell us where it's kind of hazardous to be a pedestrian. And of course, you got 20, 30 different responses from all different towns. That can't be readily distilled into a simple number, but I just wanted to, present the sense of how much response we did get, and we did get a lot. And then there was half a dozen questions on future land use, which is going to be very important for the comp plan toward the end when we come up with some recommendations. And here we didn't get any red items, but we did get three green ones. Higher density around villages, established areas for businesses to cater to local residents, and food trucks. We had a couple other questions that were less enthusiasm indicated. And resource protection, that you can see we got a couple red ones there, the septic systems, fertilizer, pesticides, and should town funds be utilized to acquire land for open space protection and to enhance public access. Both of those got very strong positive responses. And then the other two questions, all four of these were from 2018. The other two were above 50%. Had a couple questions on the economy. The support for local fishing industry was one of the more popular questions in the entire survey. And then there was pretty solid support for the town supporting home-based businesses. And public recreation, we had two of them that were kind of no-brainers. You have good access to beaches, and can you see the water from somewhere in town? Mm-hmm. So they got very positive responses. The less came in under 50%. Waterfront access for small watercraft, access to docks and boat launches.
Tom, the two on the beaches and water views, yes, were they aspirational? I don't remember. Did we say, do you think this is important, or they were affirming that this is true today?
The respondent had like four choices. Do you strongly agree, disagree, or strongly disagree? And the question was, do you have good access to beach? And everybody knew the answer to that question was going to be, yeah, we have pretty good access to beaches. And that's why the numbers came in so high. And of course, all you got to do is drive down Ocean Ave, and you have a pretty good view of the water too. Evacuation, you recall that was Liz talked about that earlier this evening. We had 76 responses, and there was an interesting discrepancy between whether you'd have difficulty evacuating and somebody. Difference between 3 and 8%. Climate change. That got a lot of interest, a lot of strong response. You see, we had 9 different questions. 3 of them were from 3 years ago, and the other 6 were from just this last 6 months. And most of those climate change questions got very positive response, above 50%, and 4 of them were way over 75%. And town characteristics. 3 years ago, you were looking to try to get a handle on what is it about Kennebunkport that the residents really value and cherish. And these are the numbers. They were everything except proximity to employment came in very high. And the other question was asked 3 years ago is, what are your priorities? There's one of them stood out way above the others, as you can see, natural resource protection. But most of the other questions came in above 50%, with the exception of short-term rentals. That was down at 33. I think that's my last slide here. Yeah, it is. So, you guys have any questions, comments about the our initial effort to kind of consolidate and summarize the public input?
No, I appreciate you doing that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, so we'll be going down this road a little bit more, just to make sure the comp plan is aligned with public sentiment. But that's our first stab at kind of gathering the data in a way that gives a kind of a more abbreviated summary of the 37 questions.
I forget. Sorry. In July, what's our format at the tent event?
Liz, we're talking about SWAT-like event, right?
Oh, that kind of format, like the structure of the event?
Yeah, I was just wondering whether there was a way to, take these themes, some of them, and, update them, validate them in 2021 versus 2018.
Yeah, so what we had sort of preliminary talked about was a format in which we would provide some sort of brief background information, also some either printed or electronic, if the meeting is remote, material, so that folks have some sort of info sheets on different topics, and try to give a pretty high level overview of what some of the key issues and hot topics that came up during this preparation of the plan are, and then have a series of small group discussions on particular topics. And actually, Tom, if you want to just hit over to the next slide, we can show just a couple images from some of the workshops that we did in the past. And it looks really weird to see that many people crammed in a room right now.
There's no masks on any of those people.
Right. So what one of the formats that we like using when we have the opportunity to, when we're looking for some sort of general public input, is a SWOT session, and that stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And it's a strategic planning tool that businesses and nonprofits use, and it's I think a great way to help folks brainstorm and respond to questions about particular topics. So what we've done in the past is have folks gather around at a table physically and focus on one particular topic, like housing, for example. And we ask them to share their input on what some of the problems and some of the opportunities are related to that particular topic. And what we'd like to do is throw in a few prompts or questions to get folks, thinking about some of these issues. And so we could use the input from the past surveys to help sort of inform what questions we want to hone in on related to particular topics. And ideally, depending on time, we would like folks to be able to participate in a discussion on a couple different, 2 or 3 different topics, so that they have the opportunity to mingle with different folks and to provide some input on different topics. So it's sort of like a high level overview. of structure. And then at the end of the event, it's great to have folks, we typically either have a designated scribe in Saco. They were working on building like a team of facilitators that could be, support multiple different events and meetings. And so they had a group of facilitators that were able to come in and practice facilitating, and they served as the scribes. But we've also done this activity in the past with self-designated scribes at each table. It kind of works pretty nicely when a group of volunteers don't have someone like us standing over their back, watching everything they write. And at the end of the event, it's nice to have the opportunity for folks to be able to share something interesting, something surprising with the larger group, and just have a brief sort of report out on how the event went.
Yeah.
So in a nutshell, that's what we had sort of brainstormed for our initial event pre-COVID. And I think that we'll be able to adapt this fairly well to an outdoor setting. We wouldn't use slides, for example, outdoors. I think the logistics behind getting a dark environment in the summer are not worth getting into. But we provide large maps that folks can mark up for certain discussions on, transportation, connectivity. That issues come up quite a bit. And then the other thing that we want to do is make sure that climate change and climate resiliency is a component of every discussion, so it wouldn't be a standalone topic. We haven't really, what we'd like to do perhaps at our next meeting is spend some time talking about the particular topics that the growth planning committee members are most interested in focusing in on. And Tom and I have been pulling out our notes from the chapter reviews on some of the questions that we flagged for public input to help guide that discussion. And then the other chapter that we haven't started yet is the community character and vision chapter. And so we'd like to use this public workshop to help us start getting some input for the vision as well. So that may be one of the focus group discussions too.
Okay.
That sounds good.
I was just thinking as you were talking and explaining it all, if we had a bunch of little tents around tables,
That would work
as well. Yeah, if that.
Oh yeah, like pop-up tents?
Yeah, pop-up tents. They just had different tables, and so they were all. As we move towards the end of July, hopefully we're going to be a pretty high vaccination rate and a lot of folks outside, and we'll get rid of a lot of the sort of COVID restriction requirements. But we'll end up still with people who may not be, vaccinated and so forth. So we just got to manage sort of that risk. It's, obviously it's everybody's individual responsibility, but it's still, we don't want to put them in a situation where they, folks who aren't vaccinated don't want to participate just because of that, or they can't get vaccinated for whatever issue they may have personally. Can't participate, right?
It's important too to create an environment where people feel safe too.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think maybe that week of the 20th or the week of the 27th might work better than doing something right after July 4th. Just it's more time to get everybody vaccinated. But I like the idea of a SWAT. I mean, I've participated in them in work in the business world. I'd like to see it used here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like them because it sort of helps focus people, and it's I don't want to say it's an easy activity to participate in, because it does make participants, think critically and really identify some of the key issues, but it's, it's open-ended enough so that there's no right or wrong answer. So I think that helps people feel comfortable contributing. And folks love to identify problems, so.
Lots of opportunity for drama.
Yeah.
We're good at that.
All right, great.
I can tell you what's wrong.
Yeah. So we'll continue this discussion on outreach at our next meeting, I think. Before, I know, Werner, you have some items to cover tonight. We have a couple draft slides that show the mini survey questions that we'll go through quickly and then hand it over to you, if that's all right. So we've talked a little bit about this already tonight, and there may be some additional questions that that you'd like to add in. We could ask a question about, are you more likely to attend if wearing a mask is mandatory or something like that? But our sort of first stab at some draft questions for the public outreach event specifically are here. So we have a little bit of background information about the event, just to let folks know that we are trying to put together an outreach event that will work for them, for their availability and comfort level with COVID. So the first question is, please rate your comfort level with attending a gathering with up to 50 individuals that's outside under a tent. And we could have a scale response there, not at all comfortable to very comfortable.
Okay.
Next question, which of the following are you more likely to attend? An outdoor in-person event, a remote event? I would attend either. I wouldn't attend either, an other.
Okay.
Which times of the day are you more likely to attend a public input session in July, whether remote or in person? Weekend morning, weekend afternoon, weekend evening, weekday morning, weekday afternoon, and weekday evening.
Okay. Covers those.
And then just to get some initial input on interest and what topics are you most interested in learning about and discussing. And we'd ask folks to just pick a couple so that we can see which items rise to the top. Housing trends and options, energy use, energy demand and energy sources, land use trends, transportation related issues, recreational resources and needs, natural resources or water resources and marine resources, demographics, and historic resources. And then which of the following are you most likely to attend? We had talked about either doing maybe a couple focus group meetings on one specific topic or one longer event. And so we thought it would be good to get some feedback on that. So either, one short event on one topic, multiple 1 hour events on different topics, or one longer event. And I think that was it, right, Tom? Yep.
Good, yeah.
So that's the end.
If we were to take the SWAT and break it into two different events, like run twice during that week, how much time would you need for a SWAT? It'd be the same amount, either one, right? Pretty much.
Probably. I mean, I think like if we do an event on a weekend, it would be nice to do like a 3 hour event. It would provide a lot of time for discussion.
Right.
I think we could do something in 2 hours if we do it in the evening. We usually give around probably 20, 30 minutes for each topic discussion. And that's, I wouldn't go less than that. So when you consider rotating through topics and then the introduction, we'd probably be able to have maybe 2 rotations if we did a 2-hour meeting, and then have time so people could participate in discussions on 2 different topics. And then have time for the introductory presentation and, the closing sort of wrap up.
Yeah. Okay.
And, that may be sufficient for people. They may not feel strongly about being able to talk about, 3 or 4 different topics.
Yeah. Okay, good. Thank you. Those questions look good. Be nice if we would have 50 people show up for an event. Get that good feedback.
Hey, just real quick, I think it was the second question where you said, would you attend this or under, or that? The other, if there's a large portion of people that say other, what are you going to do with that information? What would change if a lot of people say other?
Well, I don't know. I think it depends on if folks had a really good idea that we haven't talked about, and what if like 20 people say the same thing? Then we could open up a discussion about a different format. Do you think it's better not to include that option?
I was just saying, like, it was a question like, would you attend an large outside group? I mean, I can understand those, but if you put other, does that mean that like, I don't like any of those, and you're leading it to an unknown? What do we do with the other? If a lot of people say they don't want to do that, what are we going to do? What's the plan?
Hopefully they'll specify something. They'll say, if they just select other and don't give any guidance, then they're probably not interested in one of those. I mean, I would hope if someone said, geez, I really don't want to do outdoor and remote via Zoom, I don't have the ability to do that. Maybe they would put that in there, right?
Okay, so I missed. So other, there's an option for them to say something.
Yeah,
Specify.
Yeah, specify what it is.
I'm sorry. All right, sorry about that.
Yeah, no problem.
I didn't see that. Yep.
I was thinking, though, as we were talking about the SWAT, is there any way, and it sounds like maybe not, but is there a way to do some type of hybrid? In other words, you could have like the night before a 30-minute meeting or something that introduces the whole do. So you have to spend that time or that evening. You do it on an evening. Like a Saturday for sure. I mean, 3 hours is, you can certainly get all that through, and you got time to go through the process and explain it. But maybe if we're trying to do it at night, where we got a limit of maybe an hour and a half or so, depending on when we set it up and timing and targeting. If we could somehow, if there's some general things that we could provide in one of our meetings, as here's how the SWAT event works, what to anticipate, kind of what we're looking for, and kind of give them guidance, so they don't have to really kind of cover that when they come to the event.
I think that if folks did come to that first meeting, then that would work well. I question whether people would come to like the introductory meeting. I guess if we were doing a shorter weekday meeting, we would definitely want to keep our sort of introduction pretty short, but we also want to make sure folks are sort of informed. So providing just a quick overview of kind of some of the key items that we think participants should be aware of. And Tom and I have also talked about putting together some fact sheets sort of for each chapter. Sort of a high level summary of of some of the issues that sort of rise to the top. We also have the map set that we'd be able to print out and have that available as sort of an extra resource. I don't think that the directions on the SWAT, sort of the instructions, would take too long. And I think that would be something we want to do right before, right before the event.
Yeah, and then the information will be fresh in their minds too.
Yeah, sure.
Mm-hmm.
I have a logistical question. What time do you all envision the session starting? Summer evening.
I was
Yeah, I would-
thinking 6. I mean,
Yeah,
that's when our meetings begin. There's still going to be some good daylight,
Mm-hmm.
but we still have to figure out the lighting, electricity, if we're going to be doing it outdoors. But I would say try to get that natural light. Use the light
Yeah.
we have. It's a nice time of night to be outdoors.
It is. It's probably good temperature too.
yeah. Yeah, so for you got 6, you got till really 7:30-ish at that time, 8 o'clock maybe,
Yeah.
right? To,
Yeah. The only thing is, Liz made a point that the ideal squat would be approximately 3 hours. And on a weeknight, unless we're sure we have lighting, if we are able to set that up, then we can plan accordingly. But ideally, you'd want to have all the time to really do it the way Liz and Tom have designed it. And that would take a little more time.
Yeah, and I think 3 hours would be a lot on a weeknight
Yeah.
too. I think
It
2
is.
hours would probably be max.
Yep.
So maybe we think about, if we end up with a location that we could use multiple evenings, depending on the level of interest. If we feel like participation is high, we could, think about whether it's worth having 2 nights to accommodate different topics and, more people.
Did you mention that? Is that one of the questions you mentioned? Would you be willing to participate in a 2-night event? I don't know if you put that on there or not, but
No.
okay.
Well, you said multiple nights shorter.
yeah.
You did give.
Sure.
I mean, I would be happy if it was, 40 people one night and 40 different people the next night. That means 80 people
Absolutely.
got involved,
Sunset is 8:10 on July 26th, for example.
Thank you.
I knew.
Thank you. What's the tide doing?
June 21st is the longest day of the year.
And
Yeah.
as it gets darker, our eyes acclimate. We don't.
Yeah.
The darkness doesn't bother us as much.
Yeah. Bring a flashlight.
Unfortunately, as you get older, you need more light to see what you're doing. At least I find, for me.
Bring 2 flashlights.
Yeah. Okay. Good conversation. The week of the 27th is looking better and better. Or whatever, the last week in July.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anything else, Tom and Liz?
That's all.
All right. Thank you very much.
This evening.
Thank you very much. So next on our agenda is review of minutes. So we actually need the April 6th and the April 20th approvals, because I was delinquent in getting the other ones out early enough to give you all a chance to read. So I'll make a motion on the 20th. I shouldn't do my own minutes.
You
I'll make a
will.
motion on the other one.
I motion,
Okay.
I motion we accept the minutes of April 20th.
All right.
That's the wrong date, is it?
April 6th?
April 6th.
Would you?
April 6th, yep. April 6th for
Yeah.
the first set.
April 6th is set, yeah. I motion to accept the minutes as
Okay.
written.
Can you second that?
I'll
Paul?
second both.
All right, great. And I made a motion on the 20th. So all in favor of both minutes? We can do one
Aye.
motion. Aye, aye.
Aye, Captain.
That's good. That's 3. Thank you. And Warner, you have something for us?
Yes, I do. Thank you. So I emailed to you all today, and I apologize for the lateness in getting this to you. It's a warrant article that's coming forward, and this is for a modification to residential mixed use. If you all recall, this is Dan, I know you remember this. We worked on this,
Oh, yeah.
For a bit. Back in was this the 2015 era, I think, is when we worked on this. And so, suffice to say, we haven't had any takers on this. And where I have seen some interest was ironically in Dock Square, where we didn't have it as where we didn't have it listed as a use. And so the warrant article has some proposed modifications. One was to make residential mixed use a conditional use in the Dock Square zone, of which, ironically, we actually do have a couple of buildings there that that come close, that meet the definition, and then as well as making some changes to a number of the performance standards that we have there. Notably, I think increasing the number of units from 2 to 4. As well as the idea of allowing it to occur in multiple buildings. But the overall concept all remains the same. It's the requirement that the dwelling units be used as principal residences. Is within the performance standards. As well as also still needing to meet a parking requirement.
Okay. I forget, in the mixed use, wasn't there a minimum size, the dwelling unit? Did we have that in there?
I believe we did have.
I didn't look at that. What's in the current?
The dwelling unit sizes, those remained the same. I wanted to say that was a 600 to 800 square foot. May have been what the sizes were, but let me pull that up.
So if it were standalone in the zone, it would basically have the same requirements, except that this can occur in a mixed-use property, possibly in more than one building. So if you had a front building, which maybe is a store, and there's a rear store, that could be turned into a residential.
Correct. Yes.
Right.
That's right. Yep.
And these are excluded from short-term rentals?
Yes, they're intended as being primary residences.
Great. Yes.
So that means if the short-term rental ordinance came into being, no one could get a license to do that in that space.
That's correct. The way that it would work is that there would be a list of properties that would be eligible to receive licenses.
But there's really no way you can, after the fact, determine whether it's someone's primary residence or not, I assume.
Yeah, that is a little bit of a tricky, is a tricky element to determine. If we believe that it's not being used as such, there's, we can certainly request information, but the other way really to see that is to just ensure that it's not, that it's not on a listing for a short-term rental. So, so the individual dwelling units were listed as having a minimum square footage of 600 square feet.
Okay.
And the reason for primary residence was, I'm just guessing here, that you wanted to offer property owners flexibility, but not for the sake of a seasonal person or
That's
a seasonal rental, obviously.
Correct.
If I live in Massachusetts and I want a summer place,
Right.
this isn't it.
But they offer more options for simple housing for younger people or older people, or even the, you know, the owners or the renters of the Dock Square buildings, right?
Exactly.
Yes, correct.
That was the intent, was to provide more housing for.
Right. So I did go back into the comp plan just to make sure that you know, this amendment you know, request was consistent with the comp plan, and so I went back and found language in Town Goal 5, which is in the economy section, you know, and that language is pretty specific. It says to allow for multiple uses in the Dock Square and riverfront zones. And policy 1 was allow residential uses and businesses within the same buildings.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah, so it fits, you know, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it fits pretty clearly in there.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised we didn't allow it in Dock Square zone when we did this. Not sure if it's something we just missed or if there was a reason at the time. I don't recall.
It's a good, you know, it's a good question, Dan. I went back through notes to try to figure out what was, you know, whether we just missed it or whether we didn't think that there would be any demand for it. You know, I couldn't come up with a compelling reason as to why it wasn't included, you know, the first time around. So, you know, I've had discussions with the planning board with it, as well as the selectmen, and, you know, both the selectmen and the planning board are both supportive of the amendments.
Yeah. Okay. So then that the first strikeout, the located within no more than one principal building on a lot. What was the purpose for striking that? Because now you can have 2 principal buildings on a lot, is what you're saying, right? Or we could.
That's correct. Yes. Yeah, you still have to meet you know, all of the other you know, coverage requirements there. And keep in mind that you know, that as a performance standard would apply to all of the other locations in town that would be eligible for, you know, for residential mixed use.
Okay, so they still got to meet all their other standards on square footage and open, all that stuff. Okay.
Correct. Yeah.
So we just can't have 2 buildings back to back filling up the whole lot.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
How does that work? Or, you know, are there different side yard setback requirements for residential or commercial? And if so, how would that, what would govern?
Now, in this case here, let me, sorry, I got too many tabs here going. I believe for purposes of setback, you know, this would have, you know, we would be dealing with the typical setback that we have, which is your 20, you know, your 20-15-15.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no difference whether it's commercial or residential or.
Yeah, ironically, when we get into differences in setbacks, there are, the ordinance specifies a different setback for a 2-family, you know, 2-family and multifamily, you know, have larger setback requirements, as well as, you know, hotels, motels, you know, those have them, but a commercial setback, you know, would fit, you know, fits in the 20-15-15. You know, so we would apply the other use category for, you know, for building setbacks.
Is that a way for somebody to work around not having to get the setback for multifamily? Make it a mixed use, and I've got an area where I'm selling something out of that I can build it bigger and have less setbacks. I'm not sure why somebody would do that, but
yeah,
it seems
Every square foot.
yeah. I mean, it seems like to be you know, it's not like many developers try to wiggle around the rules to
No.
make it fit. Guess that'd be my concern with that.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the workaround there is, I mean, I don't necessarily see a workaround because you're beholden to having the commercial space there as well.
Right.
You know, and I think if you were trying to do an end game, you know, to get the multiplex, you know, there's limitations in terms of, you know, your commercial, you know, the commercial piece of it to it. I don't see it as a loophole for, you know, for a multiplex.
Okay.
So what about, Werner, in a zone that only allows residential? I'll pick Goose Rocks, for example.
Yeah, it's not listed as a use at Goose Rocks. You know, this one here. Whenever we added it in, we only added it into the zones that already had commercial uses as conditional uses.
Mhm.
Okay, so it's not a conditional use. It could never be a conditional use in a residential zone, in a full residential zone.
That's correct. In a purely residential zone. So, for instance, it doesn't show up in the tables for, you know, for village residential, you know, VRE,
Right.
Goose Rocks, you know, Cape Arundel. It only shows up in those areas where you have, you know, commercial uses as conditional uses.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah. But somehow we missed Dock Square, which already had buildings that looked like it.
Right.
I feel like they were upstairs already.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
I was going to say that just
Yeah.
observation is I think your zoning amendment's going to bring it closer to what Dock Square was in the 19th century. I mean, you're really lining up your zoning with what's physically out there.
Yeah.
It would seem,
Yeah.
yeah. And the residential unit could be a rental, it could be condo owned, it could be, you know, if it was in the same building, for example, it could be any structure.
Yeah, correct. I mean, it's, you know, condos, you know, just that form of ownership, but, you know, I think arguably, yes, it could be done as a, you know, it could be done, you know, as an ownership.
Mhm.
Separate from the, could it be, I mean, if you met the condo statute, that's a
Correct.
separate can of worms.
That's right. Yep. Yeah, no different than if you did a commercial complex, you know, I mean, you could do a commercial complex in a condo form of ownership too, you know, and,
Of course.
you know, yeah.
Okay. I'll make a motion if that's what you're looking for.
Yeah, so, you know, so what I would like to be able to report is that the Growth Planning Committee has found the zoning amendment to be consistent with the comprehensive plan.
That's my motion.
I motion that we adopt it as Werner stated.
Okay. That's, you're seconding it?
I'll second it, Paul.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think that, yeah.
I second it.
All right.
Ready?
Any other discussion on the topic? Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Jim? You raised? Aye. You there? Aye, okay, good. So that's 4-0.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and I think that concludes, other than other business. Lost my agenda. Where's the agenda? Okay. Yeah, any other business? It's not on the agenda, but any other business from any of the members?
Nothing from me.
Okay.
thank you.
So our next meeting is 14 days from here, so the 18th. And
All right.
sounds good. All right. Well, thank you all for attending, and I'll take a motion. Paul, you want to do the honors?
I guess that's my job. I motion we close the night.
All right.
Second.
Aye. All in favor?
Bye.
Aye.
Aye, aye. Thank you
Good night,
all.
everybody. Thanks.
Good night.
Thank you. Good evening.
Aye.